Thank you very much, Shivangi, for that quick update coming in from one of the vantage points where Shivangi is right now. In fact, a short while back, Shivangi was also reporting that the NDRF is stationed at the very place that she is in. Remember, those are some precautionary measures that have already been taken by the Noida authorities. Just if there at all is any untoward incident, then the authorities are well prepared at this point in time. A lot of announcements have also been done. Remember, before the demolition was to take place, there were regular meetings that were taking place between the Resident Welfare Association of these areas with the Noida authorities. Communication has essentially gone to them what exactly needs to be done. As Shivangi was also pointing out, some of the Residents Welfare Association have essentially given a pinpointed precautionary measures that have to be taken. But having said that, there would still be some concerns. There would be some fears. After all, this perhaps is that first big demolition that India is witnessing. This kind of a demolition, as Shivangi was also pointing out, we've seen it in the United States. We've seen in some other countries. But as far as India is concerned, at a much lower scale, it was done in Maradu in Kerala, given the fact that those buildings had violated the CRZ. So all that put together right now, what's going to essentially happen is that roughly around 2:30, as Shivangi was pointing out, you would have about 6 people inside the exclusion zone, which included the blaster, along with him a police official and a few others who would be present there to press that button. Once the button is pressed, what exactly happens is that almost all of the floors that you see right now, let's try and explain this to you, the process of how the implosion is going to take place. And I'll ask Ravaji to stay with those visuals of the two towers and what exactly is going to happen and how exactly is the demolition essentially going to take place. So over the last few months, what the construction company has essentially done is that in each of those floors, they have strategically placed some explosives. Roughly about 3,700 kilograms. That's the amount of explosives that have been kept. And what the company responsible for the demolition essentially had to say that this is going to be a controlled implosion. So what happens is that the moment the button is pressed, those two buildings are not going to fall exactly apart. It just caves in. It just caves in. So it's a process. What you're going to witness around 2:30 is just about 9 to 13 seconds is the process where this 29 floors and 32 floors of these, the Apex Tower is going to come down. Now, essentially the process that you are going to look at behind the implosion includes the gradual weakening of the critical supports of the building. So if you look at the lower areas, the first, second and the third floors, if Ravaji can try and give you a closer glimpse, because that's where the focus is going to be. It's going to weaken the critical structure, so that what happens is that when it falls, it's against the gravitational force. It comes straight down and that's going to happen, and it's going to create that debris roughly about, as of now, we're being told that it's about 55 tons of debris. That's the construction debris that's going to be created because of this demolition. There is also a plan in place. So the moment the demolition gets over, those who are part of that exclusion process, in the exclusion zone, they are going to enter that area, also do some basic checks, because remember, there are explosives in it. So is there any of the explosives that hasn't exploded? If that's the case, they will have to do some checks. So that's the first big concern for those who are responsible for the demolition. They're going to check. After that, remember, the sanitation workers and others who are part of the Noida authorities are also going to come in closer. The cleaning process also begins, because remember, all those, what you see, these areas are expected to be completely covered by dust. The trees that you see just next to the Twin Towers, because it's a small garden area, and that's closer to the Noida Expressway. That's going to be completely covered by the debris, because as I understand from what we are being told by Edifice, the company, they are essentially highlighting that Apex has about 11 primary blast floors. So let's just go back to those two towers and I'll try and explain this to you. So total of 3,700 kilograms of explosives. One of the towers, which is known as Apex Towers, has 11 primary blast floors. floors where all the columns on the floors have explosives, 7 secondary floors where 60% of the columns will be blasted. The smaller one has about 10 primary blast floors, and total the explosion, the material that is going to be used is something called emulsion, which has a stone crushing capability. So it essentially comes closer, it falls together, and it goes down. So it's not going to be essentially what you see a spread. It's going to be more like caving in, and it goes right inside. And in the basement area itself, it's been created so that the construction debris basically lands there. So large part of the construction, the debris that is going to be generated, it's going to remain in those places to try and fill up that area. Remaining of it over a period of 3 months, it's going to be separated. It's going to be taken to other plants, construction sites where it's going to be used for. But as far as the residents are concerned, the fear or concern essentially going to be that if the wind speed is higher, then you are expecting the dust to flow towards the very side where we are broadcasting from, because essentially the wind speed right now is more towards our side. And in terms of the shock waves or the vibrations that's going to take place, that they are saying that essentially they are not. They're saying that the vibration isn't going to be that much, which is going to create more problems for those buildings in the nearby areas. At max, it could perhaps create some cracks. So that's exactly how it's going to be like. Now, what you see on those adjoining buildings, which have been completely covered with those red and blue and yellow sheets. Now, those are the precautionary measures that most of the residents have taken to try and cover those areas. Use some of those bubble wraps in the window pane so that it reduces the shock wave, resulting in some sort of a destruction in those towers. Apart from that, in this entire area, about 3,000 cars have been removed. They've been taken to another area. So if Ravanji can show you, if you see those two roads which are adjoining to Emerald and ATS village, if you see that's completely deserted right now, because those are the areas which have been considered as the exclusion zone, and entire area has been completely barricaded. So even as we were coming in, we had to take several roundabouts to reach this very spot. I'm not very sure if Ravanji can show you some of those fire tenders that have been brought in. If I can get a signal from Ravanji to just tell me if he can show you. Yes, so what you see right now, those are the fire tenders that are being brought in right now. They're coming in and they're just parked behind the ATS village. And all those areas, people are also now coming in, because I think so some of the locals have been allowed to at least be somewhere closer to the garden where these fire tenders, as you see right now, they are all fire tenders. I can spot about 4 fire tenders on this side. Shivangi is on the other side, somewhere closer. Nivedana is on the other side at the flyover. From that flyover, if Ravanji can show you, that's the flyover that you see. That's the other vantage point from where we are getting in. Now, from there also, you take a look at the ambulances and fire brigade have also been called in. So all preparations are underway right now. More and more fire tenders have been brought in. Ambulances have been brought in various locations. These are strategic points that have already been decided where exactly are the ambulances and the fire brigades are going to be placed. So they are also being brought in right now. Let me try and go across to Nivedana, because Nivedana is perhaps very close towards to the where the building is right now. I'm not too sure for how long. Perhaps Nivedana, you can perhaps be there, because you're. At least it appears that you're very close to the very place that's been created for all the media people to stand there and perhaps continue with their broadcast. But Nivedana, what's the scene like in terms of the preparations that have been undertaken by the Noida authorities? Are you seeing anything unfolding before your eyes right now?
Shravan, as of now, the only thing that we can see over here is the